Hey everyone, welcome back to Garden Rescue. We are in a brand new project, as we always are. This time we are in Tauranga Zoo by Rubih. And if you don't know Rubih, she is a Planet Coaster, mostly streamer. She's recently gotten into video making. And she has come over to Zoo reluctantly, but she is here now. And this is her zoo. It's meant to be based off of a zoo in, I think, Australia. I really can't remember. I want to say Adelaide, but I think that's leaking from my Planet Botanic series because I have the Adelaide Botanical Garden. Her zoo is actually meant to be in New Zealand, and she has this kind of almost like budget zoo, and not budget in a negative term. You can tell there's something wrong with the lemurs. Oh yeah, they're drowning. Okay, so a budget zoo that's not supposed to have a lot of really fancy or complicated structures or anything like that. You can see at the main building, it's really beautiful. It's a lot of this sort of corrugated metal and stuff like that. So having a zoo with a budget in mind is kind of a different project than I've been working on for the past 3 zoos. 3 garden rescues, because the first one, Malin Zoo, definitely does not have a budget, and we went way over on that. Nuna Kanata technically does have a budget, but we were working on a very specific kind of natural element. And then in Little Eden, I didn't really get the feeling that it had a budget either, because I did jam in a giant sky trail, so that was probably a multi-million-dollar addition there. Tauranga Zoo is definitely going to have that, and you can kind of see it in the aardvark exhibit here. But she told me that she was very uninspired, so that's why I ended up getting this zoo. So my concerns when looking at the zoo is that, yeah, it's boring. I think there are better ways to show off animals in a more natural environment by assuming that the environment was already there to begin with. And I'll tell you what I mean a little later. So yeah, the aardvark exhibit's going away because she had mentioned that she likes okapi, which are forest zebra, and so they're going to require a completely different environment. So say goodbye to the aardvark exhibit. That is going away. Second problem, the big problem, is that this is in a very hilly area, and if this is supposed to be New Zealand, there are mountains everywhere you look. So I think we're going to move this entire zoo into a new biome, which is going to break a lot of stuff, but I think it's going to look better in the end. Third issue is that the flora does not look anything like New Zealand. It looks like Planet Zoo, so we're gonna fix that. we're gonna change that a little bit, and we're going to include things that, you know, look like eucalyptus and stuff like that. But I did actually look at a few pictures of New Zealand, specifically the forests in there. And yeah, there are things that we can do that makes it look a little bit better. Fourth thing, there is a lot of paved paths. And if this is supposed to be a budget zoo, this is a lot of material to take care of. The nice thing is we have really good paths for something that you would just throw down. So this path, this tree bark path, is perfect because you can just get bags of bark and lay them on the ground and you have yourself a path. Same thing with the gravel. The gravel is very much like the bark, where you would get bags of gravel, or you would get a whole truck full. You would put it over a compressed base and there you go. So this would actually require somebody to sit down and pave these all together. We'll have that for the entrance still, but for the rest of the exhibit and rest of the zoo that we're gonna do, yeah, no, we're gonna stick to these sorts of materials. Since we're gonna change the okapi anyway, they tend to be a fairly shy species, so they need a lot of room, and this is just not gonna do. Also, this is incredibly flat, and flat is boring. Flat is uninspiring, and flat is not how the real world works. So everything is going to be on a slope. Sorry, Rubih, that's just the way it's going to be. So I think with that, we can get going. All right, here we are in a new biome. You can see that everything has mostly transferred over pretty well. The barrier stuff did not come, nor did any of the paths, so that'll get slightly fixed, but it won't be super fixed. The big thing here is the change in the flora, really. You can see that I've got some of my homemade eucalyptus here with the diamond leaf willow. There you go, diamond leaf willow bush. And a lot of you have been asking if I'm going to make these available. I am. I just want to have a bigger pack ready to go before I put that on the workshop. Over here, this exhibit did not come in perfectly well, so I'll have to do a little fixing on that, but it's not my focus, and Rubih did say that she's going to change this anyway, but I do like the nets that she did there. I think that's very clever. And then the big change is this giant canyon, Okapi Canyon to be exact. And so what we wanted it to look like is, as we get down here, when you're coming in, first off, you're not really going to see it because it's going to be pretty well forested in this area once I have the plaza in and everything. But it should feel like this terrain was here before, and the zoo, Tauranga Zoo, did not necessarily make a new habitat for the Okapi. They just adjusted the canyon that was already here to fit the Okapi as an Okapi rescue. So that's what I'm going with here. Is I'm trying to create the feeling of a New Zealand sort of canyon. You've got the water running through, a very tiny stream, but enough to do all the erosion. And then it works its way around. I've used my technique of using track rides to get nice smooth curves. In this case, it's just a guide curve to make sure that the canyon looks a little natural. In my reference material, I saw a lot of really wet things, so that's why there's a lot of this date palm, which isn't necessarily native to New Zealand, but the shape of it, the feeling of it is. Along with the tree fern, there's a lot of tree ferns in the resource material. A lot of these kind of quirky trees, a lot of this kind of mid-green, so I like the ash, some of the eucalyptus for interest and verticality, and then also some of these Himalayan pines. Again, it's not part of New Zealand's climate, but it looks like something that is, and that's what we're going for here. So I don't want to hear comments saying, oh, he's using things that aren't part of the biomes. Like, well, yes, because Frontier did not purchase or did not produce New Zealand flora. Alright, I decided to do some path work and get some peeps in this zoo to make sure that people were actually using the paths and everything was going well. You can see that I have started working with the materials that I was going to. So a lot of gravel on this side kind of shows that it's a soft edge. It's not really a hard edge. It hasn't been hard paved, and that's why I can get away with some of these like undulations, which really do help sell the idea of that this was a natural area before they decided to put gravel paths down and some of these homemade fences using some tree branches and stuff like that, just to keep people from falling in, because you know how I feel about people. These areas right here are going to be rope bridges once I have figured out how to do that. But to get the effect right, it had to be something really small. So in this case, it's going to be 2-meter paths running across. If you want to know how this is done, this is going to be in Mayland Zoo's Garden Rescue. I think I go over a complete history of path manipulation, and that should show you how I did that. And so when you look at this exhibit, it should not be boring. You may not actually see the animals, and that's kind of the point, because Okapi don't really like to be in the spotlight. They don't like to be seen, and so if you do find one, it's a lot more special than if it's just there, in a fenced cage or something like that, or behind glass or something. So you really have to look for these animals. Now, they have managed to just walk into the open. They normally wouldn't do that, and you can see we've got a little baby too. Oh, and he just took a crap. Cool. And then here is the back of the middle part of the Okapi Canyon. You can see that I've got the rest of the canyon kind of carved out a little bit. This will continue to be worked on. And then you have this really cool viewing platform. And again, to make sure that the Okapi feel natural in this environment, this structure hangs over, but so much so that you should not be able, since the okapi can't look up, they shouldn't be able to see people looking down. So people can look down into the bedding area and still enjoy the animals, but the animals themselves don't really know that people are in their environment. You can see the scale of the structure as opposed to the animal itself. On the other side, there is another set of observation decks. Once again, you're looking down into the canyon. You are never at the same level as the okapi. It's just not the kind of animal that takes well to that. And so we have to be respectful of that. The plant palette has not expanded very much, but the overall size of the canyon has. And that's important. So to get something to look like where it's supposed to, don't add things to your palette that you didn't already kind of set. So in my case, I've set certain plants and I'm sticking to it. I'm sticking very, very strictly to it. The helpful thing too, I didn't quite realize this because I don't work in habitats all that much, but when a person starts looking at a habitat, they no longer become an object, so people can just walk right through, which is helpful because these paths can sometimes get locked up really bad. Alright, we've been doing a little bit of path manipulation. Again, a little bit of habitat manipulation. This lower canyon's looking pretty good. You can see that the water's in there, and all the plants are basically in. I've started working on the rope bridges. You can see here. These are a pain. Not gonna lie, these are an absolute pain. But I think they're looking really good, and I think they are effectively kind of channeling what's supposed to be a rope bridge. I did take a look online to see what they actually look like, and that kind of helped guide my decision there. Over here, I've got the canyon a little bit more filled in. And you can see I've got some of the enrichment items hidden underneath, so they use different parts of the canyon. This barrel feeder, this okapi tends to like this barrel feeder a lot. Everybody's lost because I broke the paths, but that's fine. What I wanted to show you guys is the fact that nobody was using this back path here. And it's just the way that the Peep AI sometimes works. They come to an exhibit, they take a look at it, they don't really explore it all that much, they go to their one point and then they leave. So to get them to stick around, I added an exhibit back here. It's just kind of hidden, it's going to be kind of boxed off or something like that, but it's just there. I think I even named it, no I didn't name it yet, but I think I name it in the future, thing to get people to walk right or something like that. And that's really all it is using exhibits to direct people the way that you want, because naturally their AI sometimes just doesn't work the way you want it to. I also decided to get rid of the water because water's a pain, and anytime I can replace it, that is great for me. So instead I've got the running foam particles to make it look like a creek. And you know, it sounds a little nicer, it looks a little nicer from the air, and you can still manipulate the terrain even when it's in there, which is really, really helpful. So you can see, not all the foliage is in yet, but you can kind of get an idea that when the okapi are in here, this is their point of reference, this is their field of vision. And so they don't really come in contact with humans a whole lot. Even though the humans can look into the canyon, the okapi are pretty well protected from the stress that you would normally get from all the people watching. And from the zoo standpoint, all they have done is build up a little bit on this upper ridge here. They've installed 2 rope bridges, and this viewing area is probably the most expensive thing. Because as far as the zoo's concerned, all this foliage was already here, and they just made sure that there was nothing super poisonous for the okapi. Being New Zealand, there's not a whole lot that can really kill you, so I think it would be alright to have some animals in here. Alright, well I quick and dirty kind of added the lemurs back in. Again, I think this exhibit's gonna change. It's gonna definitely get updated and probably improved. What I do like about this though, and I've noticed a lot of people using this, is the idea of putting a water cube in, and that just allows you to have the water where you want it. And then you just need to put some scenery in to kind of make it look a little bit more plausible. A water cube is basically just a barrier, and from there you put your water in and then you lower the top of the barrier. Probably the best one to use is the glass, because the glass has the least offensive or intrusive column. From here you can see the zoo is actually functioning as a zoo now. A lot of the people are connected back up, and then you also have this eating area in the eucalyptus garden here. The rest of the Okapi Canyon is starting to come together as well. You can see that paths are starting to diverge, and then you've got your little staircase up to the first rope bridge. The rope bridge actually has some supports now, which helps sell the whole idea. There's the second rope bridge. You can see I really like the way that these rope bridges just kind of jut out of the exhibit, and then you get little hints of people walking around. So you got one side of the canyon, the other side of the canyon, and then if you look down you can sometimes see the forest zebras. Back here I moved the exhibit a little closer. I'm just going to cover that in a very simple box, just to show the edge of the exhibit there. And people are still using it as they should. The staff paths have been cleaned up a little bit too. Again, I don't believe this is an area that I end up working on very much. I had to leave, some stuff for Rubih. And I think we're ready to just about button this up. There's still some work to do, definitely on all these structures, especially this one. This one's just free floating right now, so this one will require a lot more work. Yeah. Let's get it done. Alright, big jump like they always are, but we are at the end of this garden rescue. And here we go. Here's the entrance view as you walk through the gates of Tauranga Zoo. Ooh. You can see that Okapi Canyon has its sign now. It's supposed to look like some beads and stuff like that. As we zoom up, you can see that the canyon is done. It's pretty well forested, and it's looking pretty darn good. Ooh. Here's my hand cinematics. It's a bit further along than where it was, huh? You can see that the observation area now finally has a structure. Very simple materials, almost like insulated blocks or something like that, but they are a different color on the inside than they are the outside, so they're a little bit more restful in here. Very well protected, very secure, and just all around really cool. Up here is an area that you probably haven't seen yet. This is the upper canyon, and this is where the water starts making its way up to a waterfall. Around here, and you start to see the canyon close up. Woo! A little bit of water trickling through there, and then it gets really tight. And you can see the water flowing in there. Up here is where the river continues, or the creek continues, so you've got this nice little waterfall here that's sort of digging out the rock. But it's a very shallow canyon. And then the water continues through to another waterfall, down to the creek that we all know in the Okapi Canyon. So there's an upper canyon, a middle canyon, a lower canyon, and they all connect now. And the rest of the canyon has been pretty well forested in. All of the greenery is clinging tightly to the rocks. There's plenty of spaces and pockets. They still have their enrichment. A little cave here. But it's been formed with some rock and some terrain to make it look a little bit more seamless. Down here is the Okapi's favorite barrel feeder. Again, pretty well hidden. So if you're looking at it from Peep's view, you really can't see it. And if you do, it's painted the same color as the rock, so it's really hard to see. This is the view you get when walking across the first bridge of the Okapi Canyon. It's just very lush and well forested. And then if you choose to go down here to check out the exhibit from a different angle, you've got these little shelters too, because you can see all this green. It certainly has to have a lot of rain. So let's get the obligatory rain in there. It has to be a pretty wet canyon for all this green to just be living here on its own. Here comes the rain. But it still holds true to the idea that there are limited structures in this habitat. Mostly the natural is what is keeping the Okapi in, and the only structures that have been built are this little outcrop here for the observation deck, this little pallet sort of lattice that just keeps people out of the rain for a little bit, the rope bridge structures with their ties, and these little structures here, which are supposed to be more thatched than, I know that's like a tile roof, but it's supposed to look like a thatch roof. And then from here you can exit the Okapi Canyon, and what this does is brings you into the viewing area of the exhibit, which is really just to draw people in, to move people the correct way through the canyon. But the Okapi have plenty of shelter, so it's nice and dry in here underneath the observation deck. So yeah, I believe that ends our garden rescue for this time. Hopefully it abides by the kind of idea that this is a zoo that doesn't necessarily have a lot of money, but still has a kind of big ambitions in trying to rescue the Okapi so that they can be sent to other zoos because they are such an endangered species. And the way to do it is limited vertical structures, very basic materials, lots of wood, lots of rope, lots of gravel, lots of bark, not a whole lot of other concrete materials except for the big exhibit here, which is, you know, I could definitely see as being plausible because it is such an important area to house all the Okapi. You know, this one was a really fun one to do. It definitely got much bigger than I thought it would be. I don't know why I didn't think it would be as big, but it seems like we always go in with certain ideas and they seem doable at the time, and then when you're in the fourth day of doing the same idea, it starts to be like, wish I didn't have, wish I had maybe scaled the idea down a bit. But in this case, I feel like the scale of the canyon needed to be pretty large. And you can see it takes up a good portion of the zoo now. And as long as she continues that all the way across, you know, keeping that stream, that river going, it's going to look very natural as the water continues to flow through and find its way through the zoo. I've also given her the challenge of she now has elevation to work with. She might hate me for that, but it's necessary to create really natural scenes like this, to have this canyon ridge slowly climb up, and to have the foliage just kind of envelop, and it gets slowly higher and slowly higher. You know, that's what it takes, and it's gonna be a pain in the butt to work with it, but it's there now. So I look forward to seeing how she deals with that. If you liked what you saw today, you know what to do. Next garden rescue, I'm not sure what it's going to be yet. I think I might take a little break from garden rescues for now and try and work on my projects a little bit. I also have a possible new project coming. Actually, a possible 2 new projects coming, but both of them are collaborations, just on a different scale. A lot of people said that possibly Pond Shrimp and I should get together and do something, so we are going to try and make a go of it. And we have a really cool idea for you. So look for that in the future. We don't really know when. We haven't really started the park yet, but we have started the Pinterest board, which means that the project is officially happening. Once you have the Pinterest board, that is it. All right. Well, thank you guys for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.